Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're going to be talking about the one, the only legendary Zebec network. Now, for this, I am going to mention this in the beginning of both of these videos, just for roughly 30 seconds to a minute and a half, just because it is important. Plus, sometimes people watch one video and not the other, and I really want to let the Zebec community know that we did have, the rate cuts cut. We went from 4 to 3.75%, which is what we love to see because the lower the rate cuts, pretty much in simple terms, it's just better for crypto. Okay. It's just better. Let's just put it in the most simple terms, the most amateur terms. It is better. And we have gone from, I think, what, 4.75 or 5% a couple months ago to now 3.75, something like that, or 4.5, sorry, 4.5 to 3.75. So yeah, it's looking good. It's looking better. It's still obviously not where we want to be in terms of rate cuts, but just know every time this does happen, the rates do get cut. It is better for crypto. Okay. It is better for crypto and it is most definitely better for altcoins. Anyways, let's jump into Zbec's price action. We can see we are rank 153 out of 8,999 active cryptos. So we can see we're below 9,000 active cryptos, and what in the peak we were around 9,600 or something like that. So listen, man, I'm telling you guys, right? Cryptos come and go, and sometimes I know people get scared with the current Zbec rating because we were like rank 132, and then now we're like 153. Well, listen, we're bound to fluctuate. Sometimes certain coins get a little bit more love in the market. Sometimes they get a little bit less, right? You're not always going to have the spotlight 24/7. Again, that's just the truth. Even during altcoin season, some alts will peak a little bit before us. Some alts are going to peak somewhere in the middle, and some alts are going to peak more towards the end. Money cycles, it's normal. But we can see, not every crypto stays, not every crypto can survive. And I've even done a turbo video, talking about that meme coin. I compared to other meme coins, saying, hey, so many meme coins come and, they came and they left, and turbo's still standing. And yes, I'm not comparing turbo to Zbec, but the point still stands that in any sector of crypto, meme coins, real world assets, DeFi, TradeFi, PayFi, all of them, right? There are cryptos that will come, they will go. And then there's something like Zebec that, sometimes we will go up, sometimes we'll go down, sometimes, our ranking will look better, sometimes a little worse, but generally it is always going to look fairly good when you zoom out on the bigger picture. And then when you notice that, a lot of cryptos are leaving, right? They're getting wrecked. We can see over the last year, actually, we're only up 15% because we are shifting in time, which means if you bought exactly a year ago, you would only be up 15% if you did hold the whole entire year. Anyways, I guess that's all. In the last year, I lied. That was on all. In the last year, though, we are up 184%. So, technically, if you're still holding, in theory, you could cash out for almost 3x your money. But I would double think about that decision if you were to do that. Anyways, look, we are down 20% in the last month. In the last week, we are down 5%. And in the last day, we're down 2%. 220 million market cap, 7.5 million volume. Volume will be kind of low, guys. They will be low until like the first week of January. Most likely, there could be obviously an anomaly situation where things kind of speed up, like they did in the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. But generally, historically speaking, this slows down heavily at the end of the year. We can see OKX, BitGet, Gate, KuCoin. We have a lot of great exchanges over here. No Coinbase, no Binance yet, but I am not worried about those listings as I do believe they will be happening inevitably. We can see that we are apologies, Jesus. I need to drink some water soon. We can see that we are actually, going up in holders a decent amount. We're not like scaling super heavy, but the fact that, most days we are still going up probably roughly 40 on average, 40 to 50 during times like this, during some of the worst times altcoins have been, during probably the most scary times, Bitcoin has been in the last couple months. This is still fairly good, especially this is all organic growth, right? If you saw holders leaving consistently, that would be concerning. But the fact that we're growing during the hardest and roughest times, that doesn't really concern me. In fact, that makes me very, very confident about this project. Listen, we will talk about the price action, we will show the indicators, and then we will talk about certain zones we are looking for and what I still expect from Zebec in 2026. We can see when we go and look at the daily candle close, it was poor, right? It was poor. We did create a lower low once again on the daily, which does show that we are failing to go to the upside. And it does mean that this support over here of 0.00277 is going to be very, very short lived. We can even see on the 4 hour, we just broke structure again, and we just rejected off a zone, right? We can see that we do have this institutional 4 hour candle here. We tapped into it, right? We tapped into over here. We can see we did have some structure. We broke down lower. So we have a low, we have this low, we have a lower low, we have this high and a lower high with a nice big rejection. So the next zone we should be coming back to, where we would really have to make one final attempt to burst up, would be the 0.00275. But I don't think it's going to hold, as I do think that we should still be going at least most likely to this daily order block at the bare minimum. And I wouldn't even be surprised that if the start of 2026, we would wipe out this massive, massive zone, right? Will we wipe out this one? I would be really, really surprised if we did get to 0.00145, as that's a very, very, very deep support resistance, right? I mean, in theory it could happen, but I am not thinking it's going to happen. I'm thinking more likely if we do sweep, we'll go down to 0.0019. But of course, we will need to see how everything plays out over the next few weeks. And remember, people, we are kind of still in a big trend, right? We are in a big trend. We can see when we do something like this, we are tapping, touching all the highs. And even if we take it this way, it doesn't really matter which way you take it, right? Like this, right? We are running out of time, and eventually we will have to burst. We will have to burst through. You can do it this way, you can do it this way, right? Sometimes it's hard, and I know that's what can make these trend lines a little bit inconsistent at times. But the point is, near the start of the year, we need to just start reversing, kind of like the way we were over here, right? We were kind of in this trend downwards like this, downwards like this. And we can see we bursted up, we faked to the downside, and then we went up. So we can see the exact same thing, right? We can eventually do something like this, more or less. Boom, up, fail, fake out, boom. Right? Kind of the same exact way like this. So that's what we're going to be waiting for. And that's what we've been expecting for weeks now, right? So it's not a new thing. This should not be something new. We've been talking about this literally at least since mid-October, that I expect Zebec to break out in 2026. When we go and look at some of our indicators with our settings, we can see on the daily, we are consistently, in this bear trend. When the green line crosses the orange and the green, the green is on top, that does mean that we are bearish. We can see it for the daily like this, and we can actually see that, roughly 2 to 3 weeks ago, we also crossed on the weekly. So it's not very, very ideal for something like this. And we can see overall very, very weak price action. When we go and look at something like this, the MA Cross 50, right? It does not have the weekly settings, but we can see we did officially cross on the 14th of November. So we are bearish, right? According to 2 indicators and according to obviously market structure, we are bearish in 3 different aspects. I know it's not ideal, but don't get too discouraged. Don't get too discouraged. In terms of the RSI, we're at an okay spot to be buying. If you're thinking more long term and you don't care about being in drawdown, you can always pull the trigger now, right? You can always pull the trigger down, or sorry, the trigger now. We can see on the weekly, we are also in a decent spot as well, but we still technically have a little bit more downside according to the daily and the weekly RSI. But yeah, that is going to be it though, ladies and gentlemen. I still believe Zebec should be at least hitting 10 cents. So if you do have more of a longer term mindset, and you are willing to hold this for a couple months, let's say upwards of a year or whatever, we can see if we go to something like the price range, we put it roughly where we're at with 286. We're going to put at 284. We don't have to be literally perfect. So if we even hit something like 4 cents, that's 14x. That is 14x. If we hit something like 10 cents, that's 35x just from these spots alone. So if you don't care about the most nitpicky price, you could in theory get now. But remember, expect more drawdown over the next short weeks. That is it though, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye.